and welcome to the Porsche Cup lap guide here on iRacing for Coach Dave Academy. Week number 7 here at Virginia International Raceway. What a circuit. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy this lap guide. It's a very, very lovely circuit and a very nice circuit for this car, although it is quite challenging. We're going to go through a lap guide. And then we'll start to talk. Sorry, we're going to go through a hot lap and then a lap guide. I'll talk through kind of the tips and tricks around here in this fantastic circuit. And we're going to go to the hot lap now.
That was your fastest lap of the...
Hello and welcome to the lap guide. You just saw the hot lap. Not a perfect lap, but pretty good with retrospect, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I can talk about some of the areas to look out for your own laps, and also some of the areas that I thought could have improved very slightly on that lap. But here we are, Virginia International Raceway. Lovely, lovely scenic track. Been part of iRacing for a very long time. And it's had a rescan recently. So new curbs, new. I think they may have even done the surface again, but don't quote me on that one. It was pretty recent anyway. Here we are in the beautiful 992 Cup car, and we're going to go on a little tour of the lap. So first bit of the lap, really, just keeping it nice and tight. I always talk about minimising the distance to the next corner. There's no reason to drive further than you need to. I like to get out pretty wide here, and you're kind of looking towards the 3 board. With the way that you brake this car, I've talked about it many times. You have the ooh and the do. It's like a mountain. My hand gestures maybe don't do it justice, but you can go back into the hot lap and just take an idea of how I'm doing the brake traces. A little bit ago, like a year ago, 2 years ago in iRacing, you used to just hit the pedal. Like we're going from 0 to like 80% as fast as possible. We don't do that anymore. Talked about it, helps to keep the tyre temperatures down. It's just a better, more efficient way to brake this car. So, as we're going into turn number 1, I'm aiming the 3 board, but we are braking before. So I'm looking at that 3 board, kind of halfway between the 3 and the 4. I start to brake. Important not to carry too much speed into this corner. You can carry a lot in, but what it would do, if you carry too much into this corner, you'll probably have a bit more of a fast line. So you'll actually push out harder, which means your exit here, because this is quite a tight corner, really. Why is the blimp in such a bad position? It's quite a tight corner still. You know, you've not done with your corner, and you're starting to accelerate from under 100 kilometers an hour, which in the Porsche Cup is probably the most challenging part of the driving experience, along with the braking. And you know, there's a few other things, but I always aim straight exits all the time. Make your exit as straight as possible. It helps you so much for your rear traction. So you run it in kind of slow. This is how I found to be best. You run it in kind of slow, and you're just trying to straighten that exit up as much as possible. So you see here how I've kind of almost started to straighten the car. I know it doesn't look that straight, and it definitely isn't straight. But if you were to run it in harder, go wider, you would have to turn more, and that would cause you to have less available traction. At the rear, I often explain it like you have 100% of the grip towards the rear tyres, and you can only have 100% at all times, depending on the temperature, but we're too complicated. And you've got to balance that pretty fine, especially in this car. So when we're exiting these corners, we're trying to leave as much grip available for traction and not for turning, as it were. So we've done turn number 1. Again, I don't know if they call this turn 2. It is America, so they might call it turn 1A or something stupid. Oh, but we won't talk about it. Going into here, into turn 2, I'll call it. Could be 3, depending on how you count corners. We brake pretty early because we're in a curve. I still try and keep it pretty straight, so of course you could be following the line a bit harder. I kind of V it out, and it's important for me to take and carry a lot more speed in than you expect. I think it's very easy to brake too early, be too slow at the apex, and therefore you're losing quite a lot of time. It was something I was losing about a tenth on earlier in this session when I was just getting up to speed. And also important to remember, we are not the FIA. We do not care about track limits. So you can run all the way out to the grass here and you won't get any form of off track. So you can attack that a lot. So if we look at that from the car as well, the curbs are really nice around here. I love to use them to extend the track. We're always trying to make that line a little bit shallower so we can carry more speed. Happily attack the curb. It does not upset the car whatsoever. Braking into this next corner, you kind of brake at the end of this little green concrete bit. And you bring the car into the next section again. I love using the curves, so I jump nicely over this one. There's no off tracks that you're going to be getting for that. So nicely over this one, just opening up this next corner. Now, this is where I talk about my lap not being perfect. I made a mistake here, but it shows you how much time you can gain just from setting up the corners correctly. So here, what you'll notice is I pick the throttle up, and I'm realising at this point, hey, we're turning, but we ain't going to make it. So I had to come off it a bit, and even preemptively, it's not 1%, it's like 0.1% on the brake, just me getting a bit anxious. So I'm running a little bit wide here. So this has cost me half a tenth, maybe a tenth on my optimal sector through here. But what it does is it gives me a much wider run through this section, which is very, very hard to do flat, especially in this car. And I pretty much managed to do it without much sliding at all. A very small slide, which is suboptimal in a race run, but in something like a qualifying, due to the fact you've got such a long straight ahead, it won't spike your temperatures and you won't see much of a degradation in terms of your grip. So my advice through here would be to do a good line and to pick the throttle up early, but you do want to be ending up here where I am now, because it does just allow you so much better to open up the track and really attack those curbs. You're not getting any off tracks for touching the grass here. I know some circuits are quite finicky on it. So if you just look in the cockpit, really just attacking this and trying our very hardest to stay flat. And by the end of this little sector, which splits just up here after the bridge, I'd only lost about 3 thousandths and I gained maybe 1 or 2 going up the hill. So overall, not too bad of a loss, but there's always room for improvement. No lap is ever perfect. So, if we continue onwards, this is a lovely, lovely section. Fortunately, flat out in this car, but it's lovely to place the car through here. Use the curves nicely, just shorten that distance. One curve, next curve, lovely bit of elevation. They just don't make tracks like this anymore. I actually love jumping in that bit of curve there. I think it really helps you stay right. And in fact, you're not going to be getting any off track or anything. It doesn't even unsettle the car. And jumping in like that just allows you to make sure you're setting up right to this white line for your entry here. I would suggest to turn in earlier than you think. And also, one thing to note, brake in a straight line. We're braking after the corner. Don't start your braking over this crest or while you're still completing that corner, because it's just going to cause you problems. So brake in a straight line, turning in earlier than you think, but in fact, you're anticipating a tiny bit of understeer, and you're also jumping onto this curb. Helps you carry a lovely bit of speed, and this was the best I've done it. I mean, you don't get much better than that. Very, very early power application and just using the track to the absolute maximum, again, attacking these curbs as much as possible. So, very nice run through there. Again, we're going on to the brakes again. Just kind of the start or just before the foreboard in the cockpit, it'll look like you're a lot closer. So yeah, just as you see the floorboards start to get onto the brakes, you're going to need a little, quite a little amount of brake, lesser pressure, to go through here, because that inside rear right is always going to want to lock, especially on the 41 to 43% bias that we might be running. And I did have to actually compromise a little bit on the bias, so bring it forward a bit more, because of just how bad the rear inside locking was here. What is also important to note is you want to actually finish your braking pretty early on, because you want to still carry a lot of speed, because look how much exit you can use. God, the FIA would absolutely hate this. You can use all of that greenery, and it just allows you to straighten the exit, kind of what I already talked about. Again, it doesn't look very straight, but you are just trying to give the maximum amount of grip available for your acceleration. We'll have a little look at that through our cockpit camera again. Curb usage around here, we always want to get on them because they're not unsettling the car, and they're great for shortening or extending the amount of grip that we have. Then it's straight, again, just shorten your line. That's all I'd say. No reason to be over here. Just make sure your line's fairly short, and pick yourself out for one of your final big braking zones of the lap. Again, about between 4 and 3, but you're going to be braking pretty much as you see 3. Peaking pretty high, like 90%. As we start to make a left, we need to come off a bit, because we're going to have to shift some of that grip over to turning. Very nearly messed it up and locked up. Nice little run of the curb there. I would suggest on a bit of a better lap, you'd actually grab the curb just a little bit more, would just allow you to get on power and straighten it up just a bit sooner. And then we come to this final corner, kind of like a mini corkscrew, is the way I'd describe it. Elevation change is certainly a lot like that. Dropping down, attacking the curbs again, shortening, smoothing out the run through the corner, just jumping all over them. There's no reason not to. And on the exit, I was a little bit late on power, admittedly. Probably want to be flat out about here rather than here. So get that run to the line, and because this was a hot lap for me, I kept it nice and close to the right hand side, just to shorten that distance that little bit more, and that would be a lap of Virginia International Raceway. One thing I will say just on the end of this is this has been the first chance I've got to read the comments from my first few lap guides at Road Atlanta and Spa. So thank you so much for the lovely messages and the comments of support, and I hope to keep providing some good lap guides for you. Thank you so much for watching this lap guide for week number 7 here in the Porsche Cup Series on iRacing. Virginia International Raceway was a lovely thing to send this car around, and just remember, using those curbs is really important. Straightening your exits, the kind of things I always talk about in this car, but keep to the pointers. I'm sure you're going to do really well this week. Remember, subscribe if you like the video and you're not subscribed already. I'm sure like 50% of you are not subscribed, or some random YouTube statistics some YouTuber would normally read out. Like the video, helps a lot, and please put your comments in. I do read them. I do try and read them. So if you have any suggestions, anything you'd like to see for the future, put it down in there. Description will have the Discord link to come in and hopefully watch some of or get some help with some setups on iRacing ACC. Also the website as well, where we house a lot of the data and the coaching information and pricing and stuff like that. So do feel free to go and click those links. Thank you very much for watching. We have more lap guides coming. See you in week 8.